Hello and welcome to Everything F1's live vodcast. My name's James. I've got with me my co-hosts, Coops down the bottom below me. I've got Gary to my left, to your right, and Spunge diagonally down to me here. And we're just here today to talk about F1 and the amazing race we had this weekend and all the latest news and goings on around the F1 paddock. So, first of all, we'll just have a brief chat and say hello. How are we all? Are we all okay? Gary, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, mate. There's F1 on every weekend.
Yes, we've got a busy few weeks ahead, haven't we? You excited? You excited, Coops?
Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah.
Good. Anything else to add to the conversation, Sponge?
I'd echo everybody's sentiments. It's exciting.
Okay, well, it's going to be very difficult to bypass this first piece of news. Obviously, it's been all over social media today and all over the social media for a matter of months, actually. It's everybody's favourite Spaniard, two-time world champion Fernando Alonso, has joined Renault for 2021. The 2020, sorry. 2021. I'll get it right. 2021. So that's big news. He's going back to the place where he won his 2 world championships, the place where he's actually been twice before. So he makes him the only driver, I think, to have been at the same team 3 separate times. Is that correct, Gary?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you got Berger and Raikkonen that have done Ferrari twice. I think
Yeah.
He's the only one that's done
3 stints.
3 stints at one team, yeah.
So we'll avoid Spunge for a little bit while he hides in his little hood. Coops, what we know you wrote an article the other day about this and about the young drivers coming through. Why don't you just kind of bullet point or kind of give us a brief outline of what your thoughts are on this?
Well, bringing back Alonso, you might as well shut down the driver program. What's the point? There's no real reason for it. You know, he'll be 40 years old by the time he returns. Yes, it's Fernando Alonso, but these young drivers that are sitting in F2, Zhu and Lingard, I think their names. Lingard's a wee bit behind, but Juan Zhou, I've just butchered his name, but I mean, he in the second half of last year and the start of it in this race this season, he's just been driving it like he owns it. So
yeah, Zhou's awesome. Yeah, he's a brilliant driver. But could you rely on Ocon leading a team, for example? I think that's where they're going with it. They want an experienced driver, which is why they had Ricciardo.
Mm-hmm.
And now they.
I think it's not about. It's more about optics for Renault rather than anything else. It's not about drivers. If you look at the optics of Alonso coming back to Renault where he got his 2 world championships and the merchandising, there's a lot of people that are going to act like Spunge and be very much, oh my God, he's back. But there has to be a point where you have to think we need to go with the future. You've got to take a chance.
But it'd be would be quite a young team, and then would sponsors want to put their name behind 2 unknowns? Sponsors, teams are run-off sponsors. They need the money. I think Fernando Alonso is probably one of the biggest names that you could bring in. And
I think the big thing for me is that I think it's done more because of the Alonso brand rather than looking at the bigger picture. You know, the Formula One and nurturing young talent. The whole point of having a drivers' academy is to bring through young talent. This seems very much like the Chelsea of Formula One or the Man Cities of Formula One, where instead of nurturing your young talent and bringing them through the ranks, they've got the money to just go out and buy these big brands, these big name marquee signings. Your young players eventually they're like, what's the point? I'm never going to get in the team because they just go out and buy who they want.
Yeah, and you have the problem with stagnating F1, I guess, by just constantly keeping the same people in the seats. I know he's been out for a year, but yeah, I can see what you mean. with the
also,
private opportunities.
The other thing as well is any Formula One driver that hits 40 don't win Grand Prix. In the article, a guy that I follow called Sean, virtual statman he is on Twitter, he tweeted out that the only driver to win a Grand Prix after hitting 40 was Nigel Mansell, and he done one Grand Prix win. That's it. Older drivers of that age don't win championships. They don't win. So, and yes, it's Fernando Alonso. It's 2 years since he's been in the sport, and also he comes with a very much a certain degree of baggage. I don't think he's ever left amicably on any team he's left.
Minardi.
So I don't know. I just don't see it being a good idea. But end of 2022 new regulations, they could be sitting there 25 points clear in the last race of the season, and I'm sitting here thinking, well, what was that? I just don't think it's good for the future of the young drivers. I think it leaves them a bit kind of, all right, okay, what's the point of me doing this? And then if Zhu wins that the F2 championship, where we go? You can't stay in F2.
No, it's his second season, isn't it? So, and he was winning races in the first season. So, I mean, he should, if anything, be an F1 already. The top three drivers are all getting enough points to get into Formula One, regardless of whether they win it. So.
We've got a fan that's on there saying all about the car though. I'm guessing he's talking about the Renault. Is it? Thanks for the question, Adam Arnott. Is it going to be all about the car? Is he going to be happy with the car when he goes to Renault? Is it going to be a mid-tier car, or is it going to be something that's going to be competitive?
First year, I don't know. Ricciardo did well with it in the first race this season. We'll see what happens for the rest of the season. But yeah, it's just going to be a development of this year's car, and it's not looked as good as the McLaren, Red Bull, Racing Point even. So yeah, it's going to be a compromise, I think, for the first season, but then it's all new for 2022. Yeah.
My feelings on the matter is I think it's quite a good thing actually, which is completely opposite of what Coops and James think. Coops and Spunge, obviously, both don't think it's a very good thing, but I think it's quite a good thing for the sport. Liberty Media are constantly trying to push for being in the States and getting getting the Formula One to be quite active in the States, and I think because he's obviously been in the Indy, he's going to pull in all those new viewers. Oh, it's headline name, it's another world champion on the grid. It's just a good story, isn't it? I think that's my personal opinion.
As long as we don't lose Seb.
Yeah,
that's a new subject, but yeah, I think he's more worthy of a place on the grid than Fernando, to be honest.
What are your opinions on it, Sponge? Come on, share. We need. It's a vodcast, not a.
I think it's difficult because he's undoubtedly a talented driver. I've got a lot of respect for the bloke, the way that he's gone after doing different things in his career, like hunting for the Triple Crown. Not many people do that. But he's hanging around like a bad smell. It's like Fernando, we've said this a lot on our podcasts before, and I've said it a lot. A mark of a good driver is knowing when to move and where to move to. And I don't think he's ever made one good move in his career. And I think, if you think from Renault's point of view as well, next year is the last year of these current regulations. They're moving from 2022 now, aren't they, to the new regs?
Yeah.
So surely, if you're gonna want to kick on under the new regs, you need somebody in there and settled, and somebody that you think that can kick the team on which kind of concerns me. Exactly what Coops was saying. Are you telling me that there's nobody, literally nobody in GP2 or F2 or F3 that can take a drive in Formula 1? And also, how long are they actually planning on having Fernando around this time?
2 years. To start
Yeah.
off with.
It was a 2-year contract, wasn't it? So
Yeah.
I think they just literally want somebody with wealth of experience to take them into the new regs, and somebody from F2, F3 can't do that. And I think the whole plan was Ricciardo was going to do that, and he's jumped ship.
Yeah, the first year of the new regs, they're going to need somebody who can develop a car, and obviously Alonso's got that skill. He's going to be able to develop the car, so he's going to obviously have hopefully an okay championship next year, and then he'll be help develop the car, the 2022 car now, to be as competitive as it can be. And they're going to need that wealth of experience to do that, I think.
But Fernando drives every car for himself. This idea of Fernando providing some sort of unearthly feedback for developing a car, it's never happened. The only person that has ever really got the better of him in terms of the car is Hamilton at McLaren, because he develops the car for himself, not for the team.
Everything Alonso does is for himself. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's a self-centric kind of universe that Fernando lives in, isn't it?
There's a video.
The brand. Everything's about the brand with Alonso.
Yeah.
He looks to everybody. I mean, the years at McLaren ended up just being the Alonso show, and sitting with his seat and taking over the camera. And he wasn't doing like George Russell was being like the team spokesman like George Russell's been, and that's what impressed a lot of people about George. Everybody knew he was driving a dog, but he said the right things, and he talked about the team, and he talked about we will work together. Alonso doesn't do that, and never has done. And he has a very, very unique driving style as well. Yeah. And then you've got Cyril Abiteboul, who just comes across sometimes as like a wee baby goes in a huff. I mean, we all read the statement he put out when Ricciardo signed for McLaren. This is a guy who sacked Hülkenberg, sacked Julian Parma, but then wants to talk about loyalty. Okay, no bother. Good chat.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'd rather have someone like Paul di Resta back in the sport, or Bruno Senna, or somebody like that. Yeah. Somebody consistently, I think of Bruno Senna or even Paul di Resta would be able to develop that Renault for them. Hülkenberg as well. Hülkenberg only left them last year, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he'd be great coming back. I'd love to see Jensen, but he's not interested. But he would be a brilliant driver for that role, I think.
Oh, that would have made Spunge's night if we found out Jensen was coming back.
Yep.
Let's stick Emerson Fittipaldi in the seat while we're at it. While we get into older and older.
No, I want Nelson Piquet Jr. back in. I think he was a good driver. I mean, he takes instruction well, shall we say?
And what Spunge said about Zhou, I think he's awesome, but you don't need Ocon in the second car. You need somebody that's got experience for him to come in. You can't sort of expect someone like that to lead Renault, even as good as he is. I think you need the experience. So.
Ocon wasn't very good at the first race.
No, it's terrible.
I expected a lot more of him.
Bit rusty though. Bit rusty. He hasn't driven one for a while, has he?
Yeah, true. I expected more though. I thought it'd be closer to Ricciardo, but yeah, like you say, he hasn't been in for a year. So,
So our opinions then. Let's just have a little vote. I'm all for Alonso joining Renault. I'm quite happy about it. I'm excited to see what he brings, whether it's even on the track or off the track, in terms of if he even makes it around the circuit for the full race and ends up sunbathing on the side of the track. I'm looking forward to all the... if he can't get the car around the track, all the controversy that he causes on the way around, it's going to be entertainment. That's. I also do think he can get the best out of a mid-tier car, and that's there's not
Yeah,
many
the
people,
expense
not many
of the
people that can
drive.
do what he does. You know, he's got a few, not necessarily performing to their best standards cars, and he's become a championship contender. 2010 was it when he was against Vettel in the Ferrari, and 2012.
I think it was 2010 and 2012.
Yeah,
2012, 2010. Yeah.
So that they weren't the best cars on there, but he managed to nurse it around and score decent points and be consistent. And I think that's probably what Renault are going to need over the next couple of years for their sponsors for everything else. So I'm for Fernando Alonso being in Renault. Gary, for or against?
I'm for, but I want to know. It's difficult because I want to see who doesn't get a ride next season as a result of Alonso being in. So, say if Sebastian's not in the sport next year,
probably won't.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't like that. I think if it compromises somebody else that should be there, I'm not. But I kind of like the entertainment factor. So I'll say 4 for this point in time.
Okay, and Coops, so you're against?
Yep.
And Spunge, you're also against?
No, I'm completely for it.
Have we convinced you? Is that what it is?
No, did you not see my nose get bigger there?
Well, okay, we'll move on then, because we can't talk about Alonso all night. But we can, by all means, mention it later if we do so choose. If anyone who's watching has any comments, any questions about Alonso or anything else, just fire them in the comments there, and we will try and answer as best as we can. I think probably the best thing to go on to now is Austria and the first race of the season. Was it a good race? Was it a good race?
Oh, crap. Hundreds of days. It was a complete anticlimax. Just everything we thought happened.
It was mega.
Nobody sitting at this meeting was teary-eyed watching the screen at the end of the race. Paul, not shouting and screaming.
Well, I disagree with you, Coops. I thought it was an amazing race. I thought it was
an amazing race.
Fantastic race. It threw us some nice surprises. A few, I say a few DNFs, but nearly half the field of DNFs, and really mixed up.
Which was good. I thought that was great. I know a lot of people like the whole kind of it's about the drivers, reliability shouldn't be a factor, but didn't it spice the race up? It was brilliant having that unreliability. I still think there's too many penalties going on.
Yes, we will talk about penalties in a moment, but what I want to drop onto first is, we're just going to go with the winner. Valtteri Bottas has won the first race. Fantastic. I think
fair play to him.
I think
it's Valtteri Bottas 3.0.
Mate, he was great. He was brilliant.
Yeah.
In qualifying, in the race, just managed it. I mean, Lewis probably was quicker in the race pace, but Valtteri had the position, so I think he did a Rosberg in that sense. But he was on it all the time. I thought it was a great race by him.
Absolutely, yeah, consistent all weekend. They obviously got the fastest lap in qualifying. He beasted it.
Went off in qualifying, which was probably not the greatest, but
he was cutting the grass. He was being a lawnmower for the day, just doing a.
He was doing a Rosberg at Monaco.
Schumacher at Monaco.
Yeah.
Probably the most blatant one now.
Are you happy with Are you happy with the Bottas win, James Spunge?
Yeah. I think he drove well. He didn't put a foot wrong at the end of the day. So.
That's it. Have we seen a new Bottas for the year? Is it officially Bottas 3.0? He was.
Nah.
This is a pancake porridge Bottas, isn't it? It's a, like you say, 3.0. He's having his pancakes with porridge in it.
Yeah.
Maybe all Formula One drivers should dump their wife and start dating a cyclist. Maybe that's the trick. I don't know.
Wasn't his wife an athlete as well?
I think she is.
She's a championship cyclist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was the wife one? I don't know, but I know the girl.
I thought his wife was like into like gymnastic or something like that.
No, cardiovascular endurance. That's
okay, it's different.
Apparently, she was in the paddock with him over the weekend, which I thought was a no-no.
Yeah, and they said that. I think Brundle mentioned that. And he said he thinks it has really helped him focus maybe and given him.
So I saw a picture of her on the pit wall giving him a kiss either after qualifying or the race. So yeah, she wasn't a paddock.
I thought the rules were that they weren't to have anyone there. So I don't know, maybe because she's been with him and stayed with him the whole time.
She's in his bubble.
She can't go anywhere, and she has to stay within that bubble. So.
Yeah, true.
But I'm hoping we see.
I don't think Valttéri's going to be that bothered about, to be fair, but
Well, I'm hoping we see a consistent Bottas this year, and he does take the fight to Lewis, because at the moment, the way the cars are, it looks like they're in a class of two, really. So it needs to be. Sorry, what was that?
They're not as bulletproof as they make out. So.
Well,
nah, they got the gearbox sensor issues, haven't they? Which they said they still haven't fixed today. So there could be the reliability issues this weekend with the curbs again.
Was it Mercedes? Now, tinfoil hat firmly on my head. Was it Mercedes managing the drivers, or was it a genuine sensor issue?
No, hindering. No. If they were managing the drivers, it would have been more obvious. I think it was literally just sensor issues, and they were just saying, "Turn the engines down to both of them. We've got this issue with both." So he's not having it, but I'm pretty sure. No, I've seen in the past how teams manage drivers, and they don't do it like that. So I think genuinely it was reliability.
Okay. Well, let us know what you think, viewers, in the comments. Do you think it was genuine reliability, or are you on the tinfoil hat brigade like myself? I think it's a way of managing their races. It probably isn't. It's fun to speculate. Sorry, Spunge. Coops?
The team that was telling them do not go on the curves, that includes the red and white ones, they didn't have a problem, did they?
Well,
I liked Hamilton's. Bottas is using the curbs more than me.
I know I'm doing it, but he's doing it worse.
That's it. Yeah.
And even when they did stay off the red and white, they were still on the red and whites all the way till the end. There was loads of time to follow them on the red and whites.
Yeah. So going on to the other Merc then, how did you feel Lewis Hamilton performed this weekend? He was, got to say, not better, probably rusty, or would you say something else?
It was one of those Hamilton scruffy weekends that you saw at McLaren many years ago. It just made mistakes when in qualifying didn't pull the lap together, then drove around on a yellow flag when everyone should have. It's obvious that you need to slow down, so you're going to get a penalty. I thought the race was all right. It was just in terms of he was always in the position of behind. So I think it's one of those scruffy ones for him. Let's see if he bounces back this weekend.
Let's hope so. Well,
yeah.
I want to see nice close racing between Bottas and Hamilton. I want them to push each other, and I want to see close racing between them, because as I say, I do think they're in a class of one at the moment with the car, unless Ferrari's rushed upgrades can severely shift that car in the right direction, which we'll probably move on to in a little bit, because I think we're jumping ahead of ourselves.
This is a vodcast, not a live comedy show. So come on.
I'll tell you what, though, what qualifying did remind me of, it reminded me of the Rosberg 2016 year, where Rosberg nailed Hamilton on qualifying, and that's how he controlled the championship. And it just seemed to, Valtteri was behind him in practice, and then it came to qualifying, and all of a sudden, bang, he was putting in laps that Lewis couldn't do. And it just reminded me of what Rosberg did in 2016.
Yeah.
Was it 2016 one? Yeah. I think maybe he's kind of taken a leaf out of Nico's book on that sense.
Mm. We've got a comment again from Adam Arnott. Thank you very much for staying with us, Adam. You're saying rubbish. I guess you're saying it's rubbish to the tinfoil hat theory. Yeah, well, you're probably right, to be honest with you. I'm just really playing devil's advocate rather than actually believing it.
That's not devil's advocate, Taylor. That's you stirring it up.
So let's talk about the rest of the podium. We had, surprisingly, a surprise number 3.
More surprise for number 2?
Yeah, surprise for number 2 as well. Should we talk about surprise number 2? Let's go for number 2 then. On the second step.
Careful. Surprise number 2. Be careful.
Just looking at my chair. No, there's not one there. So yeah, surprise. Second step of the podium was Charles Leclerc, and it wasn't looking like it was going to be his race from qualifying. The car was a dog all weekend, the Ferrari. So it was a shock. Obviously, he had some luck with the Hamilton penalty and the Perez penalty. But what
I think the safety cars helped him. I think it was a sneaky race by Charles. I mean, I think he did really well. But if it was a race where there wasn't safety cars, I don't think it'd be anywhere near second place. Yeah. I think he took advantage on the safety car restarts and got himself where he was. Fair play.
Yeah, he was saying it was one of the races of his life. So he's really impressed with his driving. Obviously, he's happy with that he got the best out of what he could with the car in hand. So it was a decent race for him, really.
I've just had a thought.
What's your thought?
Did Ferrari do a good strategy?
No, they locked into the strategy. They didn't do a good one.
They have to focus on strategy nowadays. They don't have an illegal engine to help them out, do they? So they have to focus on strategy. Ooh.
It's surprising that they've lost 2 seconds, 200 seconds. Yeah. It's not a shock, or is a shock? We'll leave it up to you to decide. I think that kind of answers the question about were they using illegal methods, illegal fuel injections into the engine. Definitely.
When Ferrari have blocked the release of the agreement, the FIA wanted to release it and say this is what the agreement was, and Ferrari at the weekend wouldn't allow it.
Yeah.
Is that not fair enough?
It's kind of like the FIA found that they were kind of doing something that wasn't quite right, but in order to keep Ferrari's reputation, you can't ban Ferrari or accuse them of cheating, can you? Because it's like an institution. So I think that's probably what the agreement was. Yeah, but I think it's fairly obvious ever since they changed the rules. Ferrari are not the fastest car anymore. So
I think as well, what Ferrari done is they do what they usually do. They exploit a grey area, and I think they were just too much in the grey. So it probably was illegal, but I think the FIA said that it probably was, but we just don't have enough evidence to show without any shadow of a doubt that it was. So in other words, a very good lawyer, which I'm sure Ferrari have got a few numbers of good lawyers, would be able to drag it out and get it through the mud and probably end up without an agreement or a resolution that's satisfactory. So that's why they came up with this deal.
But that's Formula One, isn't it? Is exploiting the grey areas. So I think everyone nowadays it's kind of like, oh, you can't be seen cheating, but it's not really cheating. It's exploiting the grey areas, and I think everyone's just got a bit too serious about it.
The new fancy word is innovation rather than exploitation.
Exactly.
But it was against the rules, though, wasn't it? It was against the rules because it was allowing more fuel flow to the engine or to a part of the engine.
They were using the engine. Was it not using engine oil? Or
something? That's it, engine oil to enrich the fuel.
Engine oil.
Yeah, I thought that was one of their first things. I think the last thing with the really fast speeds last year was they were pumping fuel in the gaps between the measurements on the FIA sensor. So therefore, the FIA sensor was seeing everything normal, which is why Charles had too much fuel in the tank in Abu Dhabi, because they need more fuel in order to do that. And I think they kind of got caught out with it.
Yeah.
But then the FIA changed the rules, so there's now one of the said they've added a sensor, which is
so you can't get away with it. There's
so
no
it's
kind
only
of
the FIA that get that data, so there's no way for them to get around it anymore.
I think
I mean, in that respect, if they're doing something like that by dodging a sensor, it's clear cheating. That's not.
It's grey area, isn't it? You're
not. You're avoiding the two things that's put in place to monitor a fuel flow. You're avoiding that. It's not an innovation. It's avoidance. That's cheating.
I don't know. I've just hated the fuel flow restriction ever since it was brought in. I didn't think it was necessary with the turbos. It's just like, this is the amount of fuel you have, go racing, and you can use it however you want. And it's like, if you run out, you run out. And this whole fuel flow restriction is just too complicated. Which,
But that's what they're aiming to kind of simplify, aren't they, with the new rules? They're trying to take away these over the regulations.
That we created ourselves.
So Adam Arnott again has asked us a question about what about Seb? What do you think about Seb? Now we'll talk about him. We'll talk about him in the race first.
Not the best. Ooh. Not the best race he's had.
No.
No. The car was an absolute dog for him.
Did you see the onboards?
I did. That lap was horrible.
It was crazy, wasn't it? It was just like, how do you drive that?
You don't. You drive up the inside of a car and spin yourself round. So
he did his usual spinning, didn't he? What lap was that?
It was kind of mid-race, wasn't it? I think maybe a little earlier. I just wanted that race to be Seb's kind of you proving everyone wrong race, and it just went totally the wrong way.
Nobody will be able to prove anybody wrong in that car.
Yeah, true. No. But the thing is that Charles has qualified in Q3 and got P2, and Seb spun and finished P10, and that's everyone's going to look at that, aren't they? So it's clearly overwhelming.
I mean, how can the Ferrari be so much worse for Seb in the race? Should not be that bad for Seb during qualifying. Now this is a tinfoil hat thing for me.
We did speak about this, didn't we, last week?
The Ferrari car for Seb was almost practically undrivable all of a sudden on Sunday. And, Seb came out, he was very quick to come out and talk about the contract or not contract negotiations they had in pre-season. Seb doesn't care about Ferrari anymore, and Ferrari know that.
And Ferrari probably don't care about Seb anymore, so they're kind of like,
so there's absolutely no relationship there. Now, one thing I will ask you, do you think Seb will walk away early, which then could release the driver market?
There was silly rumours going around, wasn't there, about Carlos Sainz joining Ferrari early this year and Seb going. But
if Seb decides he's made his money, he doesn't care. He'll go back with his family and chill out. If he just decides, you know what, I'm done. If he's not going to get the job at Aston Martin next season, then what would he say?
Ferrari could pay him his contract and say, that's it, see you later. Yeah.
Make a deal with McLaren, make a deal with Renault. Renault can bring Alonso in. He's not doing anything.
Yeah.
Alonso would quite happily jump in the car. It's a shortened season. Make it a half season, test season for Alonso.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Don't forget as well, one of Seb's idols is Nigel Mansell, and he was like the done of just going, I don't need this anymore, see you later.
True.
Is that not after he tried to fit in the McLaren?
Yeah. Oh God, 1995.
Yeah, he couldn't quite. Did he have a race, or did he not even start?
No, he did testing, didn't he? And then said, I can't fit in the car. So they put Mark Blundell in the car for 3 races. And then he came in Spain and basically put it in the gravel and said, I'm not driving it anymore.
It's like the dog, actually.
It was all a bit unfair on Mansell, though, that was, because they couldn't even fit Mika Hakkinen into the car when they built it first. So
yeah, strange, weren't it?
They're clearly trying to get every inch.
Was that the McLaren Peugeot years?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes. That was the first year they had Mercedes, wasn't it, with Mansell coming back?
Was it?
Yeah, and it was like, oh, if it goes as well as it looks, then we're going to be great. And everyone was like, but it looks shit. I'm like,
it doesn't look very good. Almost as good as the Williams pre-season livery.
Oh yeah.
You quite like that though, Gary. I'm going to I'm dropping you in there. You quite liked it.
Which
the Williams original.
Oh yeah, I love the rocket livery. Yeah.
You're all wrong.
It reminded me of those Transformers from the 1980s, the Jet F-15 Decepticons with the red and the blue and the grey. It looked awesome. I loved it.
I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it at all.
Well, it needed to be Decepticons so that it can if it was a Decepticon, it could transform into an actually
faster car. Yeah, but the problem is that they put the new livery on, which is fine, but it looks like an Alfa Tauri, an Alfa Romeo, and a Haas. So if you see all four of those cars from the front, they all look the same pretty much from a distance. So they could have been a bit more imaginative, I think, with that.
Yeah.
It's all right. We'll know which one is the Williams because we'll see people.
He almost got a point.
Well, it was always like Kubica getting a point in Germany.
Yeah, true.
Wait till everyone falls off and trundle through. Well, that's nice.
Oh no. Well, we still.
I do think
we were on Seb. We got distracted. We got distracted from Seb. Let's get back onto.
We got distracted. We need to know where he's going.
Yeah. So
the only option he has is Aston Martin. I think
he'd fit really well there. I think it'd work really well.
He'd be happy with the Mercedes engine, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I'd like to see him in the works Mercedes, but I just don't think you can oost Bottas out. Or and Hamilton's not going to retire, and the next person on the list is George Russell, so it's just not going to happen. But
yeah, I think Bottas is going to.
The head man. Oh, when you got to tell it.
I think Bottas is staying in the Merc for at least another year. If I'm honest, I think he'll probably get a 1 year extension. He's not going to get. I don't think he'll get a 2 year extension because I think they are thinking of bringing in the young blood of George Russell, but I think they'll give him a year extension at least. So I think. You're probably right with the Aston Martin is probably going to be the best seat for him. Whether that means, whether Otmar Schaffner from Racing Point thinks that's the same thing for his team is something to be seen. I did see on one of a news article that he had said he's quite happy with Perez. And obviously they're not going to kick out Daddy's boy. Stroll.
Yeah, but they both of them had a fairly lackluster race. I thought it wasn't very, it's supposedly the third fastest car on the grid, and where were they? P5, 6, or I don't know. I don't know. Finished, but 5, and yeah, I just didn't think they exploited the car well in the race. There was no aggression there. I expected to see a Racing Point on the podium, but it just didn't happen. So
no.
But one thing I found out today actually was Schaffner did say that his interest in Vettel is resurfaced, although he did say before that it wasn't on the cards. Now that Alonso was pretty much, at the time, had pretty much signed, which is now announced, he's come out and said that Vettel is of interest.
So who does he get rid of then? Does he get rid of Daddy's boy, or does he get rid of Perez?
It can't be Perez because Perez has got a contract, and as much
Yeah.
as I suppose in that sense, Stroll does have the money to buy him out, but
or maybe you could buy another team.
stick Stroll as a tester. Keep him in a team.
Or just buy another team and put him in that.
Williams need a buyer.
But Aston Martin specs.
Yeah, exactly. Buy Williams and put him back in the Williams.
Well, he's basically total Wolf. Wolf can buy Williams, right? Move away from Mercedes, buy Williams, call it Wolf GP, because we like that name.
Wolf's been around before, isn't it, as a Grand Prix team in the 70s?
Yeah, that was the
original Williams team, and then they got rid of Frank Williams, yeah.
Yeah, they sacked Frank Williams and then look what happened.
I thought Toto looked quite grumpy this weekend. Did anyone else think that? I know we didn't see a lot of people with a mask, but he just didn't come across as being happy.
Yeah.
It's a very different situation in the paddock. and I think it's more about adjusting.
Or it was the Daimler boss.
You know, maybe he's grumpy because he knows that this car isn't quite as bulletproof as, you know, all the Mercedes engines had issues. They had to fix the issues before they even got in the cars in Austria. And then you had every engine issue bar the Renault, the Mercedes engine.
And now they've got the
Renault and Verstappen. Sorry, Verstappen had an issue. I think that was the electronics, but you had a fuel pressure problem for Russell. Lance Stroll was nursing an engine issue, and I can't remember if they announced what it was. And then both of the Mercedes cars, and 𝐃𝐫𝐢𝐯𝐬 said in the notebook that it was actually critical, and Mercedes were expecting one of them to fail during the Grand Prix.
Yeah,
it was critical.
Stop. Yeah, they thought he was going to stop any minute, didn't they? And also the racing went smoking all,
wasn't it? Because I mean, at one point they were half a second away from each other, and that's when it was most critical.
I'll say you've got your tin hat on again. Yeah, to be fair, it was critical when they were racing each other, more so.
The thing is, they said stay off the curbs. Did either of them stay off the curbs? No.
I think the flow of the track is so difficult to stay off some of those curbs because it's just the track.
No.
It's
not an easy
track. Turn 9, you can't really avoid running into it. You know, it's
not unless you really slow down, and then you're going to lose too much time.
Yeah, you're just driving around like a pace car. It's, I think it's difficult, and like you say, then they've still got the problem this weekend because it's the same track. So
there were comments online. It's obviously this is me playing again devil's advocate because not because I believe it, but because I saw it online. But they painted the car black, and could they be having heat problems? And could the heat, as the black car is absorbing the heat, cause sensor issues?
No, because most of the heat comes from inside, and then that would be reflective on the inside, so you wouldn't get the heat soak, I guess. And it wasn't that hot, was it?
No.
No, so
it'd been raining all before that. As I say, I was really just playing devil's advocate because I'd read it as a theory online. But you know, it's good to touch on these things just in case there's any kind of theory to it.
Sensor issues.
So Seb should go to Aston Martin, we think.
What about? He should go. I think it's his only option.
No, but what about Alfa Romeo? Would he be good alongside Kimi or alongside Giovinazzi when Kimi retires?
Kimi's leaving at the end of the season. He's Oscar.
It's you know, Alfa Romeo is a Ferrari sister company, I guess, isn't it? I think they've burnt their bridges. I don't think he'd be interested in Alfa Romeo at all. I think Racing Point just sounds perfect, to be honest. I mean, like you say, it's the only choice, but I think he would do really well there. Let's see what happens. Yeah.
Again, it's about optics for Seb going to Aston Martin. It looks good for the sponsors, but Aston Martin to have a 4-time world champion with Sebastian Vettel. And the thing is, as well, there is no pressure for him being there.
No, it's a German engine because it'll be the Mercedes engine, and Seb has wanted to be in that Mercedes engine since his last season in Red Bull. So it's certainly, I think that's probably the most likely place for him. So
it's a very slim chance, but I think because Stroll is contracted for 2 years, he's still contracted for next year, whereas Perez is 2 more, I think, in 2023.
So that's where the problem lies: is the driver contracts.
But the thing is, driver contracts. If you've got enough money, you look at the Bottas situation to Mercedes. If someone has enough money,
and he's got enough money, hasn't he?
He's got the gross domestic product of a small country in his back pocket. So I don't think money's an issue. I think when I was doing the article for the website, when I checked it, he's got a net worth of $2.6 billion.
It's quite a bit of money.
Yeah, he paid
he could put Lance
million for Aston Martin. So.
I think he should put Lance in the Williams with Latifi and call it Team Canada. I don't know where George would go. That's the problem. And obviously George is too big of a talent to drop. So, yeah. We'll find out.
We'll find out soon. But what we'll do now is we'll move on to the third step. Then probably, I think it's going to be a very popular one with us in here, because we're all secret McLaren fans, or not so secret McLaren fans. And the third step was with young Lando Norris, the young Brit.
Yeah, boy!
For McLaren.
Yeah, boy!
Come on.
Lando's great.
I was screaming, absolutely screaming at the telly. I was so happy. And I've subsequently watched his last lap, his fastest lap. So he didn't just get third and get on the third step, but he actually got the fastest lap to try and fall within the 5 seconds of Hamilton's time penalty. And that lap was just beautiful.
And it was quite a lot faster than anybody else's lap as well. It wasn't just like a smidgen. It was like over half. I think it was like 7/10 faster than the second fastest lap, I think.
Yeah, he was pumped on that. He was pumped. I think he was holding his breath the whole way around the lap, actually. And he mustn't have been breathing at all during that whole lap, because he was just so focused. If you watch the lap, he's on the boost, probably. You can see his finger on the steering wheel on that boost, and they're coaching him through it, saying, 1 second as you come out of this corner, 5 seconds as you come out of this corner. You're like, come on.
Empty the tank. Do you know, he was the fastest lap was... His fastest lap for that race was exactly the same as Verstappen's the year before.
Oh, really?
Exactly the same. Yep.
There you go.
The 2 laps before the end, he was 6 seconds behind Hamilton. So it's not just the last lap. It was basically the last couple laps. See, once they knew, like, the 2 guys in front of you have penalties, you move. He moved.
Well, he showed that he could. He showed that he could.
And his battle with Sainz just before it as well was good as well. But he went round the outside and for that corner and survived, unlike the certain Red Bull driver.
I was wrong on his lap time being a lot faster. The Mercedes were a couple of tenths, but their fastest laps were right near the end of the race as well. So even though they were managing, they still did their fastest laps with 3 laps to go. Crazy.
But it's great to see a McLaren on the podium, isn't it, Spunge?
Yes.
I was well happy. I was literally, because I didn't watch the race, as you know, until later on in the evening.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all got the messages.
You were down the pub, weren't you?
We won't talk about that. I was still feeling a bit fragile from the night before. Got home and watched the race. Yeah. Gave myself a headache again.
Oh.
But yeah, that was. I think that's the most excited that I've been for a last couple of laps ever in Formula.
It was like crazy.
Timo Glock!
Yeah. Timo Glock!
I could see, because my dad's like Ferrari mad. I'm McLaren mad. Leclerc was up there, so my dad was going mad.
Yeah,
I was there because I could see the gap on the
timing screen.
The live
that part of the screen there.
Yeah.
I could see the time coming down. We saw, in fact, when he went over the line, I don't think we could see the caption on the left-hand side of the screen. I don't think it was actually showing the gap at that point, but then it came up that he'd done the fastest lap. And we were like, well, if he's done the fastest lap, he must have caught him.
Oh, no. In the video I watched, they actually weren't 100% sure when they told him.
Yeah.
They said the gap to Hamilton was 4.8. I think that's a podium. He then went into full, oh my God mode. And then he's like, well, hold on a minute. And then they realised a few seconds later. But there is a video of the McLaren garage for that last lap next to his last lap on board, and it's just great. I can't have lost count how many times.
I would have loved to have been in that garage at that point. Though.
That would have been a great atmosphere in there. That was Coops, you had a good bit of good bit of messaging today, didn't you? You fangirled a little bit.
I did. Yeah. Yes, I did. I full on fangirled, and I messaged Zach Brown, the CEO of McLaren, just letting them know, look, very proud to be a McLaren fan, tears in the eyes, an amazing job with everybody. And the man himself replied the next day and said thank you. I never expected a reply, never expected anything. And yes, I got a reply. I woke up this morning and said thank you from our man, Zach Brown. Now, he's a busy man. He's organising everything for the race coming up, and he says, and he's spitting, I mean, a big hairy ginger from the depths of Scotland, and he says, "Thank you." You know.
Yeah, it's good.
Makes me realise I picked the right team to follow in Formula 1.
He was excited though, wasn't he? He was going around everybody. He was really pumped.
He almost got himself into bother because he was on the grid and he's not allowed to be on the grid.
Oh yeah.
He nearly
hugged and then he realised and jumped back off. He's
He nearly crushed poor Lando's ribs in the embrace when Lando jumped at him.
That was a big hug.
Yeah, it was great to see, and he did his customary slamming of the champagne bottle on the third step, and then poured it all over his hat and his face. And then he realised that it's probably not the best thing to do when you've got a face mask on trying to stop COVID. But you know, it was great to see.
So those three drivers, I'm guessing one of them was each one of yours driver of the race. Any of those three? I think Albon got it on the F1 pole, but
I think
one of those three.
I think the consensus says it's Norris, Leclerc, Albon.
Yeah,
I don't think it's Albon. I think personally for me, and I guess I'm biased, is Norris. But not only that, the last 2 laps that boy had to do, forgetting the fact this is only his second season of Formula 1.
Mm.
He nailed it. Leclerc, I get it with Leclerc. I understand it because that car has no right to be up there. But then with him, there's that element of luck. There is a bit of an element of luck with Norris, but Norris still had work to do with the luck. I think Leclerc lucked into his position more than anything else.
But Norris was also kind of there. He was kind of there in qualifying as well, and he was kind of there during the whole race. You know, he did well all weekend.
Fourth he got, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In qualifying.
Yeah.
But promoted to third after Hamilton's promotion.
Yeah, and like you said, he had a few bits where I think Perez and then Leclerc got past him, which was a little bit scruffy from his point of view. But he, like you say, pulled it back in the last couple of laps. And got back to where he was. So I think, for me, it was Norris, driver of the race. Yeah,
he's certainly my driver of the race.
Honourable mention has to go to George Russell, though. That the Williams with Russell seem to be keeping pace with the AlphaTauri and the Haas.
Yeah.
Until the fuel pressure problem tanked it for him, but. Definitely, it's a shame because this is a kind of race where a team like Williams needs to keep the reliability because they would have stumbled across a few points, a decent handful of points, by the time the end of the race came about. But
I think he would have had a couple of points, wouldn't he, if he'd got to the end? I think George would have been 9th or 8th, around about there. So it's a shame in a way.
Yeah, real shame. So we go on to the next controversy of the race. We may as well. We've mentioned his name as a potential for driver of the day. The Lewis Hamilton and Alexander Albon crash. Well, touch. We'll call it a touch and spin off around turn 9. Is it turn 9?
5. Is it 5?
No, 9's the last corner.
It was mid lap, wasn't it? It was after the second DRS zone, into the quick right-hander. I don't know what it's called.
Okay, so we'll go round, and I'll speak to Spunge first because he's been quite quiet today. Spunge, who was at fault? Who was at fault, or was it just a racing incident?
Do you know what? Can I be honest?
Yeah.
No.
I'm still undecided. I'm still undecided because I think Albon deserved the place. He'd gone round the outside of him at one of the most difficult places to overtake on the circuit anyway. gone clean around the outside of him. I think Lewis could have avoided the damage, the contact if he wanted to. But at the same time, I don't know, was Albon a little bit naive to go out there?
Yeah.
I mean, Lewis had tried to move out there earlier in the race, and he pulled out.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know, was Albon a lot further forward? He probably was a lot further forward. I'm edging to the fact that it was Lewis's fault.
Okay, Gary, I know you've got an opinion on this.
Yeah, I'm old school, so I hate penalties, whoever it is. I just like to see them racing. I know you've got to have some form of penalisation for things, but I generally thought that was a racing incident. Lewis was on the line. He was full lock for that corner. He could potentially have braked to avoid him. Was a lot further ahead than Lewis was, and it kept my nerves. So I'd say racing incident.
Mm-hmm. And we'll go over to Coops then. What's your opinion?
Well, it's one of those ones that I think they're fine line, but from what I gather, the stewards gave him the penalty because they enforced the regulations as written. So that's obviously fell into, and it must be that it fell into that 𝐃𝐫𝐲 thing when they're alongside, and the fact that Albon was so far in front. And it's regardless of the problem you've got is the physics of it. That corner's a downhill corner. He had full lock on to go away from him, but he was always going to drift wide. So there was always going to be something. But then on the other side, Albon did have enough room to move over, even with the left. There was enough room for him to go over.
He wasn't fully on the curb, was he? He was into the track. So and I think the problem is the way the regulations are written, that Hamilton has to get the penalty. And again, that goes back to what Gary said. It's the way that it's governed at the minute, and that's why it has to be done. So that's why you got the penalty. But I think this incident has shown that Albon's still young and he's still a rookie, because Albon would have nailed him at some corner on the next lap because he had brand new softs on. He was the only one in the last safety car out of the top cars to go in and get softs put on. Bottas and Hamilton were nursing a dodgy car with old mediums. If Albon had just thought about it, he would have passed him probably turn 1, turn 2, about a DRS, and probably went on to win it. Yeah.
His car at that point, the strategy had locked into him.
He would have easily had Hamilton. Yeah, he would have easily had Hamilton on the next lap. There's no way he's going to keep him behind him. So
Hamilton's car couldn't do it for the gearbox issues and everything else. Probably would have called Bottas, because Bottas was nothing the same issues, and I think they just about had enough time.
Yeah.
There's plenty of passing places in Austria, so it was brave for him to do it. But again, it's one of those rockstar wankers thing. If he pulled that pass off on a 6-time world champion round the exit of a corner that he should never have done it, he'd have looked second and brilliant. Unfortunately, he looked like a wanker. And it's that fine line between things, and we've seen so many passes that, like Hakkinen on Schumacher way, poor Ricciardo's on in the middle at Spa. Now, if Hakkinen had tanned the two of them, what a tip. But it's talked about as one of the best passes that Formula 1's ever seen. And that's the fine line. That is what it is. And we'll for pretty much it. Right, okay, fine.
Do you think it just... are we agreeing...
Yeah, I think it has Hamilton.
Do you think it shows an immaturity that Albon obviously has at the moment? Obviously, he's new to F1. He's only in his second season, so he will learn that he can wait a couple of corners and overtake a bit easier. So maybe he just showed a bit of immaturity in his drive. Do you think?
Yeah, and also
you should have.
Yeah. Martin Brundle, I mean, Martin Brundle's pretty cool. Love the guy. He kind of called it straight away. He goes, patience. Alex patient.
I think there's one big thing about that particular corner is that Lewis, I mean, that's a massive braking zone. Lewis would have been spotting the inside of the corner, and Albon would have been on the outside of him going all the way around that corner. Lewis probably didn't know he was there until it was way too late, in all honesty. So
I thought he's backed out like he had on the first lap, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's not actually looking at his left corner front. He's looking the other way to the apex of the next corner. Yeah. And then he probably didn't realise the guy's coming past him.
I think it's a very big giveaway, though, when a driver comes out in a press conference and says, I think it was a racing incident, you know that they're basically saying, I think it was my fault. Because if they thought it was the other guy's fault, they'll say it was the other guy's fault. If they think it might be their fault, they'll just go, it was a racing incident.
Although he did say, didn't he? He did say, Brazil, yeah, that was more my fault. I thought this was more of a racing incident. So he was quite surprised to get in the penalty. But like you say, it's the way the rules are written. And the FIA guys are looking at the rules and going, well, Albon was ahead and you've hit his rear wheel, so therefore it's a penalty. So it's kind of very black and white how they look at it, I think.
Yeah.
But even if they're not, they would have had Christian ring the FIA anyway. So
I'm of the opinion that it's more of like a 60-40 thing, really. I do agree that it's a racing incident personally, but with a very slight kind of leaning towards it being Hamilton's fault. With a 5-second penalty, I'm happy with the 5-second penalty, if I'm honest, because I wouldn't want any other stricter penalties.
That's the least they could give him.
Yeah, I wouldn't have wanted that drive through or a stop go or one of the other things. So, of all the penalties that were available to them,
if any penalties are getting dished out, 5 seconds is the lowest they can give.
Yeah, and I think in most cases it probably would have been fine, but the fact that they were to a nursing, so therefore they couldn't. If it was a normal race, they would have just pulled out a lead and finished first and second. I think because the safety car right at the end of the race and the fact that they were having to stay off the curbs meant that it affected them. I sort of said to you guys, didn't I? I didn't understand why Mercedes didn't swap them. But they I think Toto said that it was just complicated to do it, but that they could have got a 1-2 still if they'd swapped. But I think it would have caused a lot of confusion between the drivers. Valtteri would have been like, "What are you doing?" And it's difficult to explain that with 2 laps to go. That don't worry, you're still going to win the race. We just need
don't drive too fast. Let him pass and slow down a wee bit.
Yeah.
As a driver, you'd be like, "What? Why?" And then if you muck up by a second and he goes 5.1 seconds in front.
Yeah, and then the choreography of it goes wrong and somebody pounces and then Valtteri doesn't win the race. And so I think they probably did the right thing. But at the end of the race, I was like going, why didn't Mercedes orchestrate that? They could have got a 1-2. I was getting quite frustrated with it.
Said it on the Channel 4. I watched the Channel 4 highlights that night, and Coops said, right, well, now that he's got that 5-second penalty, what Mercedes should do is pass. And he actually said, why didn't he do it?
Yeah, and I think Toto said that.
He did come back to bite them. This is going to be a short season, and as we know, we only have 8 races now. It could just be we only have 8 races.
Yeah, and if they tried to orchestrate it and it didn't go right, they could have ended up finishing 2nd and 4th and looked like a right bunch of idiots. So I guess they.
Well, then we have a very dejected and not happy Bottas who just lost a race he should have won.
Exactly. Yeah. So they did the right thing.
But even so, as well, a driver wants to cross that line first after he's done all the hard work. It's not going to look great when he crosses in second, but then kind of gets promoted. It's kind of like that whole penalty thing that you're talking about. You don't want them to decide the results off the track, so it's kind of
same as Canada last year. Seb goes over the line first and then doesn't win the race. It just looks a bit weird.
I think with that Canada one, you knew that he wasn't going to win the race. It's this investigations afterwards, like Brazil last year.
Yeah.
But we all knew that Hamilton was getting a penalty. Carlos Sainz didn't get the chance to get up on the podium with the other drivers. You have to give kudos to the stewards because they saw the incident and they dealt with it. They gave the 5 seconds. They got it done while the race was going on. so that Norris could get on the podium and the right folk would get in the podium. This whole after the race follow.
Yeah, that's the saving grace now, is at least they're sorting it out in the races. So you actually know what you had, what was it, Verstappen, Raikkonen in Texas a couple of years ago, same thing. It's
but
better
that was good because Raikkonen turned up to go on the podium, and then there was that filming of the awkward bit when
Verstappen realised see you later. Yeah.
That was great.
So I suppose that is the saving grace of it now, is at least it is being solved in the races. But like I say, I'm old school. I watched all through the 80s, the 90s, and that, where people were always nerfing each other, and that was part of the racing. So I think I'm just used to that, and that's the thing that I don't like is
if it was Max Verstappen and he did that move, would he stand up and say, I was just hard racing. It's just hard racing. It didn't deserve a penalty. He would say that. Max Verstappen would say it was hard racing. This is what we want in the sport. It shouldn't have been a penalty. Do you think?
If Max Verstappen spun out like Albon did because Hamilton hit him, he will not say that was hard racing.
No, but if it was him performing that move on the likes of...
He would have said it was hard racing. Verstappen thinks it's hard racing when it benefits him.
Yeah.
That's it.
But that's a lesson that it's a lesson that Lewis Hamilton learned last year, didn't he? He there were a couple of touchy moves last year, and he was like, it's a lesson I've learned. And maybe he was doing, I don't know. Again, it's speculation.
My impression of Hamilton's race was, I just thought a weekend was that he was clumsy, and it reminded me of the old Hamilton, and maybe he had other things on his mind this weekend. It just didn't seem as focused as he can be. It reminded me of Hamilton from McLaren years, 2011, 12, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Right, can I clear up one thing? I saw a few conspiracy theorists online about Red Bull, and a lot of people were moaning at Red Bull because they were putting in all these protests, and we've had a good laugh at it, and there's a couple of memes being put up, which are good fun. But so Red Bull said in February that the minute the DAS gets used at a Grand Prix weekend, we are protesting it. And they did at the earliest opportunity. They didn't do it at the end of the race, and then there was all this provisional stuff for months on end and blah, blah, blah. The minute it gets put out on the date, that night of the first test that came out, that they used it, right, we're protesting it. And as Christian Horner said, it was literally to get clarity, because I think he has his own version. And he needs to know 100% that it's right.
Do you think you'll see it in the car this weekend at the Styrian Grand Prix?
I don't know if it'll be as early as this weekend, but I think there'll be something.
I think
what's the point? Yeah. Because it's banned next year.
Yeah, and I think they've protested to understand it more. So as a result of the protest, you get a better understanding of what's going on with the system, and that's why they did it. And I think he said, I saw the press conference with the team bosses, and it basically they alluded that Toto and Christian already knew that Christian was going to protest it, and he was going to do it on the Friday so that it didn't affect Mercedes, and it was all agreed. Toto, I think, came out and said, it's all business. I understand why they're doing it. And I think the biggest thing about it was Red Bull seemed to think that this was a suspension system. It changed the suspension, which would make it illegal, but because it's part of the steering, it's legal. Yeah.
And that's for the FIA stewards and that. Tobias, I think his name is. I can't have his full name.
So my question to that would be, why is it banned next year then if it's legal?
Because they've changed it that steering, you can't move the steering wheel away and towards you anymore. It has to be on that axis of left to right.
It's basically a loophole, isn't it? Benetton did 93, had four-wheel steering, and it was legal because it was a loophole in the rules, and it was fine. And they don't like loopholes, so it's legal in the sense that it's a loophole, and all they're doing is closing the loophole off for next season. It happens quite a lot, I think.
Should we just explain what it is then? This is a DAS. It basically means naturally a Formula One car wheels they kind of point outwards, so that it kind of helps them attack the corners. Either way, and what the DAS system does is when the steering wheel is pulled towards the driver on the straights, gives those the wheels, puts the wheels completely straight in line with the track, to hopefully give them that excess speed. Because when your wheels are out like that, obviously I'm doing it as an extreme here, but when your wheels are out like that, you're causing a bit more scrubbing on the wheels, and obviously a bit more friction than you possibly want on the track. But when you're straight like that, you're obviously going to get a better straight line speed. And I did see Christian Horner in a message in a news article saying he's got a DAS system, and it's going to be more extreme than the Mercedes system. Mind games,
Yes.
Mind games.
But then that's mine's is bigger than yours. So, always the way.
Yeah. What's your theory, Sponge?
Well, the DAS is all about, well, not all about, but a lot about temperature in tyres as well, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah. It takes the wear and it helps with the temperature from it's the wear, so that wall, that
exactly.
Tire.
So
I mean,
as your tyres are pointing out like that and they're scrubbing along the surface, they generate heat.
More heat, yeah.
As they're like that,
sure.
they're generating less heat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's happening to the wheels from next season?
Yeah.
They got the 18 inch.
It's 2022.
Oh, is it 22?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's
so yeah, I mean,
the 18. Yeah, the 18.
The 18 inches.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot easier to generate heat in tyres, and it's going to be a lot more necessary to cool tyres down.
Yeah. So having the straight wheels would cool them down.
Straighten your tyres up to keep them from scrubbing along the surface.
Mm.
Yeah, so you can do, it's like it says dual axis, but it's actually two things you can do. Like you say, with the tyres straight for the straights, it means you've got less drag, so you can go faster. That will actually raise the front of the car slightly as well, which means that wings are less, so therefore you've got even less drag. Then for the corners, you do that because then you've got more surface patch, greater grip around the corners. But like Sponge says, you can also do that in the straights behind a safety car to get more temperature into the tyres as well. The other thing, I guess, that you could do if you had like an active DAS is that when you're going around certain corners, you could do both going one way and both going the other way. But that probably breaks the rules, so that's probably why they can't do that. But you could essentially do that with your steering and pull the DAS, and it would turn the wheels both the opposite directions of the corner they're going, create more friction for the tyres. But I don't think it's doing that. I think it's doing the two front bits, which is you can get greater friction for the corners and you can get reduced drag for the straights, and then the opposite under a safety car. And I think that's probably what they're doing with it.
Mm. Good system, but banned next year. so we won't be seeing much of it, unfortunately. So,
the other thing, sorry, that I wanted to jump in about Red Bull and the protests. Now, we all woke up on a Sunday morning to find out that Hamilton was initially cleared of his yellow flag infraction. I say that quick piping. By the stewards on Saturday night. That was because they said that there was a query whether he slowed enough because of the yellow flag. They investigated it. They then decided, no, we're not going to. He lost a lot. He lost a time because of track limits. But anyway, what had happened was then, so Red Bull then came out with a protest on Sunday morning. And what it was see that all cars have this new 360-degree camera on the cockpit. Now, the reason that it didn't happen till the Sunday morning was because that camera is not linked to Formula One. It's not a live feed, so it has to come off the cars, get downloaded, and get given to Formula One, who then upload it to let everyone see it. That didn't happen till Sunday morning, when it actually showed that Hamilton should have seen it. But it was like there's a lot of dust, so that's why they never deleted the time, but they had to give him a penalty because he did ignore the yellow flag. So it's not Red Bull being silly. The actual evidence, which the FIA hadn't even seen either, was new evidence, and it was quite rightly allowed to be used. So any team could have done it. It was just unfortunate.
And I think it's fair play that he got the penalty. I think, it was obvious that he needed to slow down. Everyone else slowed down. So I just think he shouldn't have kept on with the lap. His originally, he wouldn't have known at the time, but his first lap was good enough for second on the grid anyway. So
yeah.
He was just purely trying to get that pole. And
I mean, he was quite lucky because they could have deleted that second that both of those laps. They already deleted one, and if he deleted the second, he would have been 10th.
Yeah.
So he was lucky, but it was just, there was a few people moaning about Red Bull and blah, 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 and I'm like, well, actually, no, they were quite right, and it was quite fair how they'd done it.
It was in a banter way, though.
Horner has been a bit of a bitchy Karen this last
year,
so, we'll see, but...
I love Danny's post. Was it yesterday or the day before with the Dr. Evil and Max as the cat? It was hilarious.
Talking about Danny's actually just joined us on the actual feed. So everyone wave to Danny. He's not with us today because he's having a birthday treat from the wife.
I think we need to
every day in a computer science.
I think we need to do an early birthday. Happy birthday!
Yeah, it's his birthday tomorrow. It's his birthday tomorrow, folks. Yeah. So we're not singing, are we? Are we singing?
Are we good?
Yeah.
Yeah, Spunge, come on, start it off.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday.
I know you used to do your
birthday, Danny. Happy birthday
to you. Tree.
The Backstreet Boys have really let themselves go, haven't they?
Now get back to your birthday treat, Danny. Danny's got a few extreme ideas about the penalty. Actually, I'll represent him while we're here. He thinks absolutely Hamilton should have had the penalty for the hit on Albon. He said it was absolutely 100% penalty. Hamilton should have pulled out of the corner. He should have backed off and should have or put more lock on the steering wheel or something like that. I've watched a few videos now, and it does look like he is full lock. But I watched Mark Priestley's videos on YouTube, and he said there is a little bit extra that he could have given if he really wanted to at the time. So I still think it's 60-40, but Danny is 100%. So I thought I'd represent Danny while he was here.
So we've got the full extreme, haven't we, with our opinions?
Yeah,
we've got that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to represent. It's good to have all different opinions, definitely.
Yeah.
Right. What else happened in the race? I completely forgot where we are now.
We were on.
Kimi Räikkönen gave away a tyre.
That's right. Yeah. That was strange as well. Yeah. Was that Curbs?
Alfa Romeo get fined for that. It was an unsafe release.
No, it was on the.
No, it was on the
wrong. Yeah, but it was on the wrong side for the curbs because those tyres don't think there's any corners where the right hand side of the car would be going over.
I think what had happened was he went into the pit under safety car, so he was cruising, so the tyre stayed on, but the minute he put any load on it, the tyre went, see you.
So it was
it wasn't bolted in right during the pit stop.
Maybe it was a de-threaded nut or something. De-threaded wheel nut or something like that. Wasn't on properly.
Yeah, apparently Alfa Romeo have been given quite a hefty fine for that one.
Well, there was no tethers or anything.
Yeah, the crowd might have been. You can understand why.
No, there wouldn't be the wheel nut does have a safety feature, doesn't it? But the tethers are on the actual suspension, so that wouldn't affect.
No, the tethers aren't on the wheel itself. They're on the suspension assembly for the actual brakes and stuff.
So the only safety feature on the wheel is the locking nut, and it's even when it's not bolted on, it's supposed to keep the wheel on. It just moves around, and then you can come back to the pits and reapply it. But by the looks of it, it's funny though because the team obviously weren't aware of it because they would have been on the radio to Kimi behind the safety car saying you need to pit again. So it's clearly they didn't realise that there was anything wrong, which is quite surprising that they then got a massive fine because it's an unsafe release, but they didn't know it was an unsafe release.
Well,
yeah.
Apparently they've been given quite a fine. for it.
Yeah, right.
Who else did we have? What else did we have failure-wise? Verstappen's electronics gave up them. From what we hear, there was an electrical issue. Fuel pressure for Williams with Russell. 𝐃𝐫𝐲 either, is it 𝐃𝐫𝐲 in the AlphaTauri? Either his suspension broke, which blew out his
𝐃𝐫𝐲. Yeah, it was Gasly. Yeah.
So that was the left rear tyre.
Was he P7?
He was pretty high up.
Yeah, and he had that issue pretty much through the whole race. But it's one of those drives, wasn't it, where we didn't see it because the cameras didn't really show them.
No, it was too busy focusing on the crowds.
Oh, tell you what. the thing that frustrated me was when it was about 5 laps of the leaders within half a second, and the commentators didn't realise, and the director didn't realise, and he was literally on board a Ferrari and then watching the midfield battles for 3 or 4 laps, and I was just pulling my hair out going, what's going on? What, and then they finally got onto it, but it was just like, what's going on? Why are you
Yeah,
crazy.
We thought we wouldn't have they'd have less opportunities to get distracted elsewhere, but obviously they're finding other things to get distracted. But they have got to show these, the lower field battles as well, so I can see why it's difficult.
But it was a half a second. Lewis had got the lead down to half a second, and they were just following a Ferrari just driving around on its own for 4. So what are you doing?
Never mind. Sack the director.
Yeah.
Anything else? So we've had loads of DNFs in the race, which you've just gone through.
Well, I think the first one was Verstappen. Shortly after was.
Should we talk about Verstappen first? Let's stop. Let's talk about Verstappen.
I think Spunge should talk about Verstappen.
No, we'll move on to Spunge because he'll have a nice rant in a second. But
I don't want to rant. I've got nothing to rant about.
How does that it doesn't put him in very good stead for the rest of the season though? With such a small season, or could be 8 races. It probably is going to be more like 15. Hopefully, we keep our fingers crossed. But 25 points against anyone to lose the opportunity to get any points at all with a DNF from somebody who was supposed to be one of the contenders for the year's title is quite devastating in such a short season. Has it hampered his chances this year completely, or
not really? If it comes up again this weekend, I think we can start placing it.
Yeah, I think
that's first race. Okay.
Yeah, I think he's probably looking at it like, I'm going to win this weekend, and the Mercedes are both going to retire, and then it's just back to square one again. And that's probably how he's going to look at it. There's a good chance that will happen.
If the sensor issues do play a part.
Exactly. So I think I don't think you can judge it until maybe 3 or 4 races in, and then maybe you can start saying, he's too far now. We don't know if we only have 8 or 9 races, so. I think he'll probably still be positive. I mean, he did a really good job.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, all weekend he was quite consistent.
Yeah.
And
I have a prediction now.
Go on, then.
This weekend, Max and one of the Mercedes will collide on the first corner.
Oh, you heard it here first.
You heard it here first. Let's see.
I think he'll be that desperate to put it right. I think he'll try anything, even on the first lap. So, but
if that's Lewis, everyone will then be on Lewis going, "Oh, he can't race." He like everyone did with Vettel a couple of seasons ago. Every time he's got close contact, he's crashing into people. And Christian will be on it, obviously. He'll be proper bashing Hamilton if that's the case.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see.
In the bag then if that happens. I think if that happens and Valtteri goes on to win the race, it's like he's in the pound seat. So
yeah, is it? Yeah. So you think he's still got a shot then at the title? It's not all over for him and down to the other rest of the field now.
I don't think so. I mean, this track favours Red Bull, but they were getting good last year anyway, so I don't see them being bad anywhere. No.
Anyone seen the weather report for this weekend?
No. Is it raining?
Yes.
Yes.
The weather this weekend, apparently.
Well, there was thoughts it was going to be raining last weekend, but it never came. Obviously, it dried up on the Saturday and Sunday. So let's hope it stays. Let's have a bit of rain.
Yeah,
keep it interesting.
I'd love that. Yeah.
Have we got any other talking points from the race, or shall we call that a day?
Yeah, well, no, we're going to have a season of Grosjean bitching about brakes again.
he did spin out, didn't he, with a brake genuine brake issue.
Well, no, Magnussen was the one that spun, which caused the first. It was his rear axle lock, and I think the corner before it, I was mid-tweet tweeting out that there's some weird amount of dust coming off his brake, and then the next thing, I think Ocon went up the inside of him. He just kept going.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And then Grosjean spun on his own, because that's what Grosjean does. Kept his front wing on. I think it was Ericsson's fault. I'm not sure. Ericsson did something with the dirt for that gravel at the end of turn 5 or something.
It was there with his sniper rifle just out the back.
Yeah, and then he went off again, I think, and that was the brake issue. I think he lost his brakes at that point, which he was tired from. So you had Magnussen, Grosjean, Verstappen, Ricciardo, Gasly. Who else did we lose? Russell. Is that it?
We lost 9.
It was Gasly's teammate, weren't it? 𝐃𝐫𝐢𝐯𝐷. Was it 𝐃𝐫𝐢𝐯 that went? I think.
No,
Stroll. Sorry. Yeah.
Or the other, and then Kimi Räikkönen. That's it. Everybody else survived. Giovinazzi got points. So I wonder how much here he's got left.
He did. He had an all right weekend, to be honest. He
performed well.
Kimi. Yeah, he did well.
No, he was there.
Positive as always.
They were just there. They never done anything spectacular. They were awful. They were spectacular. They were just there.
Yeah, just there, weren't they? Yeah.
Okay, so we had some questions actually on the when we advertised the vodcast.
Hold on a second.
Let's head over to the questions because I don't want to miss people out if they ask.
Have you got them?
Just scrolling down on my phone, but
I've got questions here that were put up when we put the post up.
Oh, that's it. Okay, Lewis Hamilton to win the Austrian Grand Prix this weekend. It's more of a statement than a question, but we can discuss the statement. I think he's probably got something to prove. He's going to come out with a determined attitude, like he does after these poor weekends, and we do usually see him dominating. I think it's likely to stir him, stir that kind of desire in him. Whether it will happen, because of the reliability, remains to be seen. But I think you're probably right in the motivation.
He's got to sort that qualifying issue out, the deficit again. But I mean, if they'd not had the issues in the race, I think he would have got past Valtteri. No tinfoil hats. If they'd not had the sensor issues, I think he had stronger race pace, and he could have got him. But like you say, he does come back after these below par weekends.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Spunge, do you think he'll come back this weekend and take the top step?
As long as he doesn't collide with Verstappen, I think he'll win.
Coops.
Maybe it's Bottas.
Coops, do you think he'll win?
Yeah, probably. Don't want him to. I'm not a Hamilton hater.
No.
I want McLaren to win.
I want to see it kind of turned up a wee bit. I want to see a wee bit of difference. But
yeah,
probably.
I just want to see close racing. I don't mind if Hamilton wins. I'm happy if Hamilton wins every race. But what I do want to see is it be difficult on the way. I don't mind anyone winning the race. I'm always about. I want to see wheel-to-wheel action, and I want to see an entertaining race. So whoever wins, that's it's great when somebody you support wins. But whoever wins, I just want to make sure it's entertaining on the way there. But I do think Lewis Hamilton will probably come back with a vengeance this week. So yes, Thank you very much for your statement / question, Peter Brown. We all think he'll probably at least be in the mindset to win this weekend. We've got another question here from Gareth Atkinson. Why are they doing free practice again, even though it's the same track layout and tyres? Why not have one practice session, then straight into qualifying? Good point.
Yeah, agree. Or was it Martin said something about changing the the track or something in the commentary as well. It's like, what's the point? Oh, it was the DRS zones. Take one of the DRS zones out.
Take the second one out.
Yeah, it was too powerful, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's you do something different. So totally agree with that. With practice, what's the point? Because half of them aren't.
They could shorten the DRS zones, take one of them out. They could even put another one in somewhere else or something like that. I don't know. They could. There's got to be something different, hasn't there? But we'll see. We'll see. If anyone's kind of watched other videos on there, obviously people are talking about why don't they reverse the tracks. Logistically, it's not possible. They're not built to be put in reverse. You open barriers, then you put marshals under pressure with the with the runoff zones and whatnot. They're not designed.
And because of that, because of it going in reverse, it's classed as a brand new track, so it needs to be homologated.
So they'd need another license, yeah.
And it's all those
that doesn't happen in a few days.
Yeah, it's like you got the ends of the concrete walls where they push the cars back in for the
You'd
right
be driving towards them.
You would be driving towards those hard edges. Yeah. I mean, they've done it. They do it at Indy, don't they? I saw the Indy race at the weekend, and they were going the opposite way round to where they would normally. I think
that's because it was the road.
They weren't doing this. They were doing that.
No, they were doing that. So yeah, I mean, Indy have done it. So yeah.
The FIA said that they couldn't do it at Silverstone because the pit exit was too dangerous.
Yeah.
Figure that out when we've got Paul Ricard on the calendar.
Yeah, true.
Which literally releases the pit lane into turn one on the racing line.
Has anybody seen the videos for the new Vietnam track in the 2020 game? The EF1 2020?
I saw the lap I saw it a while ago. I haven't seen it for a while, but
it's all the embargoes are off now because it's coming out this week. So a lot of the guys I follow are doing like careers and stuff on it, and that pit exit looks horrible. You're basically coming straight on to the racing line again. It's a bit like the Austrian pit entry. The pit entry's over a crest and
on the line. Yeah, there was that one, wasn't there? Was it South? What was that race in Asia that only had a couple of seasons? It was where Mark Webber crashed in the rain and lost the championship. Yeah, that pit exit was crazy as well, and they had to move it because it basically come out in the full line of fire of cars doing over 200 miles an hour, and they had to move it way past.
Was that the one that went underneath the track to come out?
No, that was
Abu Dhabi.
But yes, the Korea one, they had to get rid of the runoff, the gravel, and make it tarmac, and then put the pit exit right on the barriers around the outside of the runoff area because it originally fed back straight into the first corner, and all the cars were going down the straights doing 200 miles an hour, and cars were coming out. Yeah, it reminds me of that.
Recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Definitely. So yeah, we actually agree with you, Gareth. Why are they doing practice again? It's a waste of money. When budgets are wanting to be tight.
The only reason why they are doing it is I think it's more for normality. Everything's different. They want to keep things as normal as possible.
Yeah.
And
TV fans. It's not for the grandstand fans.
There'll be an element of that, but you've got reliability. I mean, when was the last time in this turbo hybrid area where we ended up with only 11 finishers?
I can't remember it happening. It must have.
I mean, it happened for Germany, but Germany was more accident because of weather.
Yeah, because of the weather.
And don't forget, a lot of teams are bringing upgrades as well.
Well, Ferraris are thinking of fast tracking, aren't they?
Bringing up a lot.
They were originally coming for the Hungaroring, but now they've moved them forward, so they've diverted the truck to Austria rather than Hungary.
Yeah.
Which is funny because they need a miracle rather than parts, but they're going for the parts. So
they need to find a little loophole to power their engine.
I hope your dad's watching, Spunge. He'll have you later, I think. Okay, well, I think we've answered that question for Gareth. We'll move on to Millie Churchill's question. Will there be anything different to the true driver performance, or apart from unreliability and crashes, will everything stay exactly the same? I think we probably answered that, actually. It's everything's staying the same. apart from we don't know whether they'll change the DRS zones. But hopefully
I don't think she's talking about the tracks though. I think she's talking about drivers now that they're not.
Yeah, I think the outcome of the race
with the way, like drivers.
Yeah,
that's
so
the first race in so long. So do you think there's going to be a change with that?
I think Ferrari with their upgrades could be better for
I think that's going to be the only big change.
Yeah, maybe Ocon a little bit less race rusty.
And maybe Latifi, because Latifi and Ocon haven't raced. Latifi, I don't think, never raced in that, especially in Formula 1 in that track. So now that they know the track, and it's not a difficult track to race on, not a difficult track in general. So now that they've had a weekend on it, I think they might see a wee bit better. But the biggest problem is it's still a race of attrition. There's still so much.
Yeah, maybe Alex Albon being closer to Max in qualifying. I've had a chance to review all that data because he's still, just over 3/10 off. I think he'll be closer to Max in this race for qualifying.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
Any other differences? Any other anything else worth noting in relation to that question? Anything with everything else going to stay the same? Is the pink Merc going to be any better the second time out?
It should be.
It should be. The qualifying pace is good, but and it's not the pink Mercedes, because the other thing about it is that every Formula 1 team takes millions and millions of pictures of other cars. They do it all year round. This is not new. What they've done is well within the rules. I think the biggest question is, because it looks so much like last year's Mercedes, a lot of people are questioning whether or not there's been CAD drawings passed over between Mercedes and Racing Point. That
I think there has been.
And that.
I initially thought that, and I did think that, but then I think it was Autosport did a video yesterday, and they actually compared the two cars. And if you actually look at the video, they're not actually as similar as you think. If you start looking at all of the details of everything, they're quite different in quite a lot of areas. And they called it almost a Mercedes W10B because it's not. It isn't actually that it looks similar from a distance, but when you start looking at all of the finer details, there are actually quite a lot of differences. So that surprised me, because I was the same. I thought, they've shared CAD or something on this.
Yeah, well, they're Pally, aren't they? Wolf has he's got shares in Aston Martin or something like that, so he's potentially got a reason to share information.
But he did an investor before he got into Formula 1. Remember, he already had his money beforehand. So investing in stuff is what he does. This is what he does.
That's how he got in Williams.
The investment in Williams, because he's got a 5% in Williams again. I think he came out and said at the time that was done purely from the heart rather than anything else, because Williams were in a bit of issues. So they were like, I'll invest in you, and it's purely, here's some money. He's not getting his sway. He can't do anything. It's a very limited amount.
I think it was just to basically keep them afloat, pay off their staff, and just help them just get to the season. Basically, I think it was what
Susie was a big part of that as well, weren't she? Susie Wolf being involved with Williams. So.
Yeah, because she was. I think she was married to him by then, wasn't she?
Yes.
Yeah, with the Wolf name.
Yeah, she's a team boss of a Formula E team. I'm not sure whether there's any link there.
She's. It's not the Mercedes Formula E team. It's a different one, isn't it? She's the boss of.
Yeah. That isn't aware.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I think we've come to a natural end to all of our chat. It's been good to have a chat with you chaps. I think we've answered all the questions that we've been posed. We will be doing this hopefully again next week before the Hungarian Grand Prix, because we've got 3 races on the bounce. Yes, because we haven't had any racing for such a long time. It's nice to see. We hope the Styrian Grand Prix is just as good as the Austrian Grand Prix.
Right, before you go
for it.
Quick fire top 3 prediction.
Oh,
James.
Quick fire top 3. I think Lewis will win, and I think I think Bottas will come second, and I think Max Verstappen will be third.
That's cool.
Uninspired, really.
I think, yeah. I mean, it would. I think Lewis, Verstappen 1, 2, Bottas third. But if it's really raining and it all goes chaotic, it's going to be a McLaren 1, 2.
We want that. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Spunge, top 3.
I reckon third will be Lando again.
Nice.
Second will be Lewis. And first, Leclerc.
Ooh. That is different.
I don't really. That was just completely off the cuff.
Well, Ferrari upgrades. You never know.
We'll see.
And Coops, then, your top 3.
Bottas, Albon, Norris.
Is that third, second, first, or first, second, third?
No, first for Bottas, Albon, and Norris. Because I think Verstappen and Hamilton will hit each other.
Ooh, big prediction.
Always going with Sponge prediction. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that.
They're in the same room, really. They're just whispering into each other's ears. Just social distance, lads. You've got a social distance.
If it does end up wet, if it ends up wet and Ferrari bring their A game, I think they've got as good a chance as anybody.
Seb?
Oh, that'd be great.
Seb's
That'd be great.
He's hitting somebody and skating off in the Yellowstone Forest.
Seb's
Seb ended
great.
up doing a massive, won't he, and ended up pointing backwards 8 times in a race.
Like Silver.
And then still ends up in the points.
It will be if the handling's anything like it was in the first race. And it's wet.
Oh.
Okay. Well, we'll call that a day. I think we've gotten to the end of our conversation. Thank you very much for everyone for tuning in. I've seen many people popping in and out and chatting. Thank you very much for joining. And this video will be up now forever on the likes of Facebook, and we're also going to turn it into a podcast as well. So if you didn't watch it all and you want to listen to it on the way to work or something like that, we'll put it on our podcast as well. But thank you very much. Thank you very much from me, James Tiller. Thank you from Spunge down below. Say bye-bye, Spunge.
Bye-bye.
Thank you from Gary, and thank you from Coops.
Unbelievable, Jeff.
And that's been our vodcast for the Austrian Grand Prix. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Guys, see you later.
That's it.